All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to a very, very weird episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your hosts, Alex and Chris, the Hotel California Condit, your American villain voices, and as always, serving up the lukewarmest of lukewarm opinions. You get that one, Chris?
I don't get it. That's why I was laughing. I don't understand the reference.
By the Eagles. F the
Oh
Eagles.
my God. That was, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah,
Levels
sure.
here, man. I can't always make them layups for you. Sometimes we dive a little deeper into the catalog.
But I'm a dumb guy. Like, that's what you have to figure out.
You don't have to remind me. All right. Well, everybody go follow the socials. Hopefully you all got the joke and didn't need the explanation. They are linked in the show notes. Apple, Amazon Music, YouTube. Go listen to all of them. Chris and I are going to talk for a while about how we may or may not hang out on Sunday. We had a 4.5 minute cold open here because we really do not want to talk about this match whatsoever. Chris, otherwise, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm doing great outside of Aston Villa. I mean, just what a turnaround we've had from the last couple of weeks. We highest of highs and I don't know lowest of lows, but it really feels like lowest of lows. But outside of the Villa, things are great. I'm living the absolute dream. How are you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm tired, man. Work is too much. Asheville was really nice this weekend. I will say that it was beautiful weather. Had a nice hike, drank some good beers, ate some amazing food. So
Nice.
can't complain too much. And had to catch this match on replay, so I was able to fast forward through some of the slow parts, which honestly was a benefit in and of itself. So let's not avoid it any longer. We will not. I'm just gonna throw this out there if it needs any clarification. We're not doing a full deep dive on this match. We're not analyzing the tactics. It is so utterly irrelevant at this point. We did this with the elimination from the Champions League. We did this with the elimination from the Conference League last year. We don't need to dive too much into the tactics, especially with only 4 matches left in the season. I mean, what does it really tell us? But we are going to skip straight to some of the bigger picture stuff. So got a few topics here that I want to get your opinion on, Chris. First off, what did you think of the lineup when it came out? Most specifically, no Rashford, who now might be out for the rest of the season as well.
Yeah, I was shocked at the no Rashford thing, and then the rumor that he picked up an injury. Like, I don't know, that all seemed very suspicious, I guess, because there was no discussion of him potentially being out that I saw. There was no discussion of an injury. This all seems very strange to me. And to me, it seems like a loan deal gone bad now. What started off so brightly went south in a hurry. But outside of that, like, I didn't mind the lineup. I thought that's a pretty strong lineup out there with the guys they trotted out, like Rodgers, Asensio. I don't know how well they work in pairing yet, but I didn't mind it as an idea, trying to get like an attacking presence on the ball. And you would think that between McGinn, Rodgers, Tielemans, and Kamara, and maybe like Luka Dean or Cash on the like out of the wing back, you would have service to Watkins. But it was really, really ineffective. But like, looking at the lineup, I didn't sit there and go, well, that's never going to work. That wasn't my first thought. I thought, well, this is a pretty strong lineup given given the players we have and everybody's available. I liked it, but it didn't work at all. At all. It was terrible.
Yeah, we talked about Rashford and his mentality when we signed him. And I think we were pretty clear that if it works, great, but we're skeptical because of the attitude and what he has shown in Manchester United, penchant for partying, and I mean, God, straight out of the Rashford playbook, showing up at a social event in short order after a major cup loss, it seems to be his bread and butter at this point in his career. I will give him the benefit of the doubt and say, yes, there was probably an injury that Unai did not want to reveal to not give Crystal Palace any sort of indication as to what Villa was going to do. And at the same time, I will, he was on the bench cheering on the squad. And so if he's going to be at the game, why should he not go out after? Ollie Watkins supposedly was at that game at that boxing match as well, along with a number of Villa players.
Yeah, he was.
I will stand on business on what I said when Rashford came over. You can't do that. You have the ticket. I don't care. You get embarrassed that way. You don't go out of the house. The Italians call it retiro after big losses. They go and they hide at a cabin in the forest essentially and are not heard of for a couple of weeks. That's what I want out of the team, to show that you really care. From him, from Ollie Watkins, from everybody else. But he's obviously the one with the most
cachet.
Yes, or I suppose lack thereof in respect to this. So rest of the lineup, I think it was the strongest lineup that we can put out there. I don't think that it was the lineup that didn't work. And so this transitions into our second point of why so flat. Where did Emery go wrong? It seems like he just continues to play into Oliver Glasner's tactics. And Glasner, it came out after the match, apparently told the team leading up to it, like, they play exactly the way we want a team to play. And Unai Emery's inability to adjust when he plays Crystal Palace is, we talked about the definition of insanity numerous times this year on doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I mean, when it comes to playing Crystal Palace, all I can say is that Unai Emery is insane.
It's clear now that, like, Glasner is a manager, and we talked about it in the lead up. We talked about it multiple times with Glasner and Eddie Howe specifically, because those are two guys that just seem to know exactly how to set up against Emery. And probably as a slight knock on Emery, no offense to me. Everybody knows I love Unai Emery, so I shouldn't have to justify it. But you have to change something. I mean, you're just getting your head kicked in here by the same teams over and over again. You and I talked about how dangerous Crystal Palace was in the lead up, and how, I mean, you had them pretty high up in your board at the start of the season, how talented they are and how well they match up against us personnel wise before you even get into tactics. You've got to change something, because what is happening right now is not working at all. I mean, you had 70% possession or thereabouts, and it was one of the worst games I've ever watched, like, in the Unai Emery era. I don't know if it's the worst or not. I'm not going to get into that whole thing, doing a pantheon, whatever. But it was bad. It was terrible. They never really threatened goal. They created a handful of half chances in the first half. I'll be honest, I turned it off in the second half at 75 minutes and watched the highlights of the last 15 minutes because I was watching the Cavs. Because why am I going to sit there and watch Aston Villa just hold the ball for a million minutes and do nothing with it? It was frustrating, and you got to give all credit in the world to Crystal Palace. They played exactly the game they wanted to play, and they played exceptionally well. And the goal that he scored was incredible. I mean, just a great goal. Some people are saying that Martinez should have maybe done better with it. I don't know. I think that's a little harsh.
First shot on target again, though.
Yeah. Ismaila Sarr played out of his mind like usual. Just that sort of speed on the wing really makes Aston Villa look vulnerable, and it probably stings a little more because I love him as a player, and like I've said a million times, I wanted him on Aston Villa.
He's one of your people. He is absolutely one of your people.
So, like, watching him just go out and ball out really makes me mad. because he wore sandals allegedly to a meeting with Steven Gerrard. So, like from a where did Emery get it wrong standpoint, I mean, Glasner said it. They played exactly into Palace's hands. They did exactly what Palace wanted to do. Palace sat deep. Once again, what we saw a lot of was slow moving, not real decisive movement around the middle and the back. And the bigger problem for me, Morgan Rogers probably had his worst or second worst game of the season. He was a turnover machine. I mean, every time it felt like he touched the ball, it was going the other way. And I know some of that is because he's aggressive and young, and that's going to happen because of his aggression on the ball. But what you're seeing, or what you saw against Palace, was a display that can't happen from a player that we consider a major part of our core going forward. And he is, don't get me wrong. But that was really, really poor from him over the weekend. I was really disappointed in him. I was, again, it's one of the same critiques that we've had throughout the entire season when things aren't going well. There's just not enough decisiveness when a team sits in a mid-low block or in a low block. There's too much passing around the back. The ball moves too slowly and the ball sticks. And what happens when we do that is that the defense is able to just sit and wait. If you can't make them move, you have nothing. You have nothing to force them out. I was watching Manchester City, and I'll let you go after this because I realize I've been rambling for a while, and I'm sorry, I'm angry. I was watching Manchester City on Sunday, and Forest sits in a low block. Everybody knows that. But what you saw from them was constant passes and movement to keep the defense moving around and to try and find passing lanes and points of attack with runs. And I don't know why we just seem to settle in and pass in a triangle around one half of the field, essentially, in an attempt to move the team around, because they're not coming out until they can get a takeaway and bring the ball up the field the other way. I was beyond frustrated watching that game, and frankly, we were fortunate to only be down 1 at the half.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple things to that. 70% plus possession. We had just over 70%. Another loss. We've talked about this stat for a couple different weeks now. I think we only have one win, if any, from any of the games where we have 70% possession under Unai Emery. And part of the problem is that I think we don't necessarily have the players with either the ability or the know-how to really unlock and break down a low block. And that's why the lineup made sense to me, particularly starting Marco Asensio, because he's theoretically the guy that we brought in to be able to do that, to play some of those intricate passes, be a little bit more creative. To your point, didn't work. What's the other thing that we said at the outset of this that couldn't happen? Morgan Rogers could not lose the ball because that was what was ultimately going to spring the counter. So we played exactly into their hands. To your point, like, Villa looks best when they can play quickly through the lines, and Crystal Palace knew that if they just sat deep, we couldn't do that, and they could counter us. And so that's really all there was to it. The only other thing that I want to ask you about from more of a mentality perspective going into this is, do you think this was maybe a one punch too many in recent weeks? You take the gut punch of the loss versus PSG on the back of the comeback, and yeah, we parlayed that into a great win against Newcastle, but then you get smacked around by City, and get that late gut punch there, lose your I guess pole position at Champions League for next season? And did this game just come kind of a little too quick in succession there, where, sports nowadays are about the most glitzy and glamorous thing, I suppose. What I would equate it to is playing in a bowl game for a college football team used to be the pinnacle. Like, if you got to 6-6 and you were in the Meineke Car Care Bowl in the middle of New Mexico, like, you were happy to show out for your university for that. Nowadays, every senior is opting out, right? Doesn't want to play. There's not the prestige to it anymore. And so I do wonder if a lot of these guys want to play in the Champions League. And when that is not a possibility anymore, I wonder if the FA Cup carries the same emotional resonance for them the way it once did, or is the FA Cup now kind of in the realm of a Meineke Car Care Bowl?
I mean, that may be true. That may be a valid point. I hope it's not, because the lifting silverware is still important to the club and to the fans and all that. Like, winning a trophy would have been nice, or at least getting a final. And I mean, the larger problem, I think, is the manner in which we went out. Villa went out. When we went out of Champions League, I mean, went out fighting like crazy. That they arguably maybe should have gotten into penalties or won it, right? All credit to PSG. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. Don't clip that. Don't do. This was the exact opposite of that. There was no fight. There was no drive. There was no will. It was one of the most disappointing performances of the season, and certainly one of the most disappointing performances under Unai Emery, because outside of Rashford, you had a full health of players, and this team is nothing to sneeze at. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a top half team, no question, based on talent alone. And it didn't look anything like that in the FA Cup semifinal on Saturday. So I was tremendously disappointed. And I think if what you're saying is true, to tie it back to your question, if what you're saying is true, that's extremely sad and disappointing to me. I understand that fans are always going to care more about the results of these games than the athletes do. That may come as a shock to some people, but it's true. But I still expect them to play with pride, and I mean, you're one game away from a final at Wembley to lift a cup, and a legit cup, not like the Community Shield or something like that. Like something that has a little bit of weight anyway. Maybe not the weight it once did, but if that mentality has crept in, then I think that's a potential real problem. So I hope it's not the case.
I couldn't agree more. Well, talking about someone who I think has proven himself to care about the team, the club, the fans, fan favorite of the pod, Leon Bailey. I think probably surprising first inclusion or first substitute off the bench in the 60th minute.
Yep.
Just wanted to spend a minute, see if you read into that at all and what you thought about him and his performance.
Well, I mean, he may have been the best player on a bad day. I don't know. Everything's colored for me, to be honest with you, colored negatively. His inclusion makes me think that we may see more of him coming in now, especially without Rashford, because you can move other players around in the midfield across the front three and bring Bailey on in spots. I think you may see more of it out of necessity, and in the future, in games that are coming forward, like potentially Fulham, he sets up well against some of these teams coming forward. And look, Champions League is not going to happen. Europa, we need help, but we still need to get results. And Leon Bailey, over the last 2 years, has proven himself to be a leader on the pitch with this team. Maybe not to the extent that John McGinn is, that Tyrone Mings is, but he is absolutely a presence out there, and I think he can help us. But I'm a big fan of his, like usual, so that's nothing new.
Yeah, so that kind of tees us up into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is, I'm not going to call it larger implication on the season and put up the graphic and everything, but coming out of this game, this was kind of the last thing that I think we really had. And Villa's season is disappointingly kind of petering out for the second straight year. We'll talk about grades, successes, failures, all that kind of stuff at the end. Certainly don't want to lose track of the fact that this is arguably the most successful year in our history as fans. But I do want to talk about, kind of skipping ahead if we're looking on the rundown, how we get into Europe this year. And to clarify for everyone, because this has not, I think, been made super clear in the press yet, I'll try and make this as simple as possible. Top 5 positions in the EPL will qualify for next season's Champions League. That is locked. 5th place is a Champions League spot because our coefficient is so high. Now, Europa League. The EPL gets 2 spots in the Europa League. One goes to the team that finishes 6th. The other goes to the team that wins the FA Cup. Then we get 2 spots in the Conference League. One goes to the winner of the EFL Cup. One goes to the team that finishes 7th. Now, there is a way that we could wind up with 2 Europa League spots and 2 Conference League spots. And that is if the winners of the 2 domestic competitions already qualify for Europe via their league position. So if we want 7th to be a Europa League spot next year, it sickens me to say this, but we have to be rooting like our lives depend on it for City to beat Crystal Palace in the FA Cup final. That's essentially what it comes down to. We are all City fans if Villa cannot jump into the top 6 based on their league position. So, Chris, I have the remaining 4 matches for all the teams around us in front of me.
All right.
So I'm going to read you the 4 matches, and I want you to tell me how many points you think the team is getting out of those matches.
Okay. Yes.
Newcastle, away at Brighton, home to Chelsea, at Arsenal, home to Everton.
5.
Okay.
5.
I would probably really 5.
Yeah.
You think 1 win, 2 draws?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would put Newcastle at 67 points. Okay.
I mean, the only thing that is going for them is that they're playing very well. But I've got 1 win, 2 draws. Yes, I stick with it.
I have them with at least 7, if not 10 points.
Wow.
I think Brighton is falling away. Chelsea is hit or miss. I suppose that could be a tie or loss. Arsenal second.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's at Newcastle. Never mind. I changed my vote. I'm at 7. I apologize. I thought that was at Chelsea. I'm
7. Okay, so 7 points would put them at 69, which basically means they're out of reach of Villa. I agree. Away at Bournemouth is a win. Chelsea at home is a win or a draw. Arsenal away on the second to last match of the season. I don't think Arsenal gives a crap about that match at that point. They'll be focused on the Champions League and they're not moving up or down in the table at that point. Yep. And then Everton at home is definitely going to be a win.
Sure.
Forest, home to Brentford, at Crystal Palace, home to Leicester, at West Ham, and then home to Chelsea on the final day.
Okay. So I got 3. I have, out of a possible 15, I have 12.
4 wins.
Yeah.
So we've said Forest beats everyone that is lower half of the table. That would give them wins over Brentford, Leicester, West Ham. That's 9 right there.
Yep.
Like
those 3 I'm counting on right there. So they need to pick up one between Crystal Palace away at Sellers Park and home to Chelsea on the last day. And I think they can pick one up. Even though they're falling off, I think they can.
I think they'll have a loss. I'll give them also 10 points. That brings them to 70.
Yeah.
Okay. Which would also put them out of reach of Aston Villa. Man City, home to Wolves, at Southampton, home to Bournemouth, at Fulham.
Hold on. I mean, so that's all wins. That's 12.
I think that's 12 points for Man City. That puts them at 73 points, out of reach of Villa.
This is not going well.
So now we've got Chelsea, home to Liverpool, who just clinched the league, at Newcastle. We chalk that up as a win to Newcastle. Home to Man United, who will be focused on the Europa League final, most likely. And then at Nottingham Forest on the final day of the season.
So I have for them, I'll go, man, only because of what I did with, and then I guess I'll give Forest a win against somebody else because I'm going to go 7 points. 7 points.
Okay. I also have them on 7 points. I think Liverpool title hangover, don't really care. Especially since it's not at Liverpool. Newcastle away, obviously loss. United home, they don't care. That's going to be a win. And then Forest will give them a draw, 7 points. That puts
the only thing is they've got Conference League, right?
They do have Conference League, where they are playing a completely different roster than what they've registered.
Oh, that's right. I forgot they have a Conference League team. Of course they do.
Yes.
Never mind.
So that would put them at 67 points. That is the one team that we are at least projecting Villa can jump. Villa home to Fulham, away to Bournemouth, home to Tottenham, and away to Man United.
Okay. So, I mean, my spreadsheet actually has these all as wins from even in January. Based on the result on Saturday, I'm not as confident, but that's being very reactionary. But if you look at it, Fulham at Villa Park should be a win. Bournemouth away, Villa never seemed to play well there, as I recall. Although, if I remember right, Rudy Gested scored a super poor header to win the first game back. First game Bournemouth came up, if I remember right. One of the few wins picked up that season. Tottenham are absolute trash, and Villa should tear them apart at Villa Park. And Man United are also not very good, and Villa should beat them at Old Trafford. So, I think it's possible to get 12 points from there. Do we? Is the question.
It is possible to get.
Oh, shut up! You know what I mean. I don't mean mathematically possible. You jerk.
No, I actually wasn't trying to be a jerk there. What I was just gonna say is, because it's been a running theme on this show all year long, with the prediction of 7 points for Chelsea, I want to predict Villa to get 10 points and have them miss out on that spot on goal difference.
You would just be happy as a pig in. I'll stop it there since we don't go explicit on this show.
I will be happy only if City go on to win the FA Cup and we wind up getting Europa League anyway. Otherwise, I'm going to be so mad at you because I will think that you jinxed it by saying that goal difference wasn't ever going to matter.
I'm pretty sure I said it was unlikely, but fair. And we'll just have, Tuesday nights in Warsaw or whatever again.
Yeah, Jesus. All right. So that is our prediction. Chris has us narrowly pipping Chelsea for 6th place. I, just for the sake of being a troll, have us in 7th. And hopefully either way we wind up in the Europa League, but obviously, as we explained earlier, that might require City winning the FA Cup for us to do so. So with that, we will take a quick pause. You will get to hear another section of the cold open because we just had so much material to work with, and then we'll be right back to talk about Fulham. And now we're back with Fulham. If you're watching on YouTube, you're very confused. So let's talk about Fulham last time out. 3-1 Villa victory all the way back in the fall, very early this season. Fulham struck early, but Villa hit back with 3. There were red cards for Anderson in the 60-something and then Jadon Philogene in stoppage time. He was on for a very short amount of time before getting kicked out. This was a game that Villa performed really well in. Would say, as we were going back several pods ago and kind of looking at when's the last time Villa put in a performance, I believe we circled this one on the calendar as one of the few times that we did. Fulham is also a team that Villa have traditionally done very well against. We've won at least 5 in all competitions. I'll admit I didn't look further than that, but this does feel like a team that, whether it's Unai Emery or pre-Unai, we have typically not had too many troubles with. Yeah, go ahead. What you
No,
got to say?
I agree. So I think some of it is like they have a couple of very dangerous players that you want to look out for, and I'm not trying to take away from that, but also I think that their style of play a little bit plays into the way that we would prefer to play, because they often try to control the ball through the midfield with like Smith Rowe or on the wings, and so I think we can kind of work the counter the way that we had in the past, and it can kind of work almost the way that Villa against Crystal Palace did, except we're never going to sit like a low block, but we will wait to spring the counter. I think in this particular game, at least, it potentially sets up that way for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's Fulham seem willing to come out and play in recent years, and those are typically teams that Villa can do well against, again, due to our ability to play quickly through the lines. What also seems to be going in our favor is that they won't even have access to some of those dangerous players. So Rodrigo Muniz out for quite a while. He scored against Villa in the past. They'll be relying upon, I presume, a washed up can't even remember his name because he's not that good anymore, the Mexican striker, and which is actually funny because I'm working on a project at work right now to identify a potential Mexican endorser for my client. But Jedi Robinson has also been injured, as US fans well know. Since
for the record, you were talking about Raul Jimenez, right? Like
yes, Raul
right.
Jimenez, yes.
For that, I wasn't sure. Also, I didn't realize he was Mexican. So when you said when you said Mexican striker, I legit didn't know or didn't realize at least that he was Mexican. So I was Googling, is Raul Jimenez Mexican? Is that the Mexican striker he's talking about?
Okay,
so that's where the disconnect was.
2 things. I remember Raul, but there only is one Raul, so he can't just be the monosyllabic Raul. Yeah. And it is pronounced Jimenez. I'm not having this British Martinez pronunciation.
I apologize.
Martinez, and it is Jimenez. But anyway, Rodrigo Muniz out. Jedi Robinson might be back for this one, but has been out injured and has had a bunch of recurring injuries since the last international break. So probably not a ton from him. And we've highlighted him before as arguably Fulham's best player, the one who they do so much attacking through, and also a phenomenal defender, one of the best left backs in the league. So having him at any sort of diminished capacity is a win for Villa. Fulham has kind of been hanging around that 8 to 10 spot all year long, but since they got closest to us around match week, I think it was like 24, they were only 1 point back. They've since only gone 4-1-6 in all competitions, and those wins, yes, they did beat Liverpool. The other 3, Wolves, Spurs, and Southampton. I'm not sure that we're putting a ton of weight into those. That being said, they are still only 6 points behind us. So, big win for Villa to move up the table. As we talked about, Villa also cannot drop out of this 7th spot otherwise they are at risk of falling into the UEFA Conference League conversation, and that would just be a travesty.
It'd still be Europe, Tuesday nights in, I don't know, I already said Warsaw. I don't have anything else to do.
Bratislava.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, nice pull.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know quite what to make of this Fulham team. I think they're kind of right where you would expect them to be, and it's a good place for them as a club at the moment to sit mid-table and just exist and occasionally get a nice win here or there in the Premier League. But I think that coming to Villa Park, hopefully the fans are up. That's the one thing that may be sort of a question mark with the results recently. Are we going to see the same level of excitement and emphasis from the fans, from the supporters? Because it's very clear that the team does feed off of that. The Fortress Villa Park thing was once again a real thing, even if there were a decent amount of draws in that. But I think coming to Villa Park, I think you have to favor Villa in this one, despite recent results. I think they're the better team, but I like a lot of the players that Fulham have. You highlighted most of them, but Jedi Robinson was the one that I had keyed on just because he's American and such a great player, just a wonderful player to watch.
Yeah, you make a good point mentioning the fans. I know that social media is not where you should get your bellwether of how the fans are feeling, but it's
dark out there.
The Villa Twitterati are in a dark space after this one, and we've been in dark places before. Even this year, we've been in dark places before. I don't think that it's ever been quite as pointed at the players. You opened this up and texted me repeatedly that they were flat. They've been accused of not caring about the FA Cup semifinal. And there are certain guys, there's always a narrative guy in the lineup, and there are certain guys that are taking a lot of criticism. And so I hope that energy is channeled positively, and we can get behind the boys to really close this one out with 4 wins. Because to your point, that's one way that we can really hopefully guarantee top 2 level European competition next year. But I do worry that if something goes south quickly, if Fulham score on their first shot on target again in, say, the 16th minute, I really hope that crowd doesn't turn against us, because then that Fortress Villa Park that you're talking about could turn into the polar opposite.
Yeah, and I mean, there is something to this first shot on target thing. Like, it is absolutely bananas how many times Villa have conceded on the first shot. And I mean, some of it is not Emi Martinez's fault, don't get me wrong, because some are just great goals, but some he should do better on. And that is a discussion for the end of the season. Once all the smoke is cleared. But like, I think one of the things you're going to see, and we've seen already, is Villa are absolutely scouting young goalkeepers right now, because I think they know that we're coming toward the end of the Emi Martinez era. And I didn't mean to kind of get on that tangent, but the first shot on target thing has really put a damper on this season. That's a little too strong maybe, but it's really put us behind the 8 ball this season in a lot of spots. That may be a better way to put it. And I really hope that we don't see that occur again this weekend, because I do think that you could see the crowd turn, and that's never a fun place to be.
Yeah, agreed. So, in terms of tactics, I think we'll see something similar to the same lineup that we've seen over the past few weeks.
Yep.
Emi Martinez in goal, Matty Cash at right back, Konsa, Pau Torres and Luka Dean on the left. Could be an Ian Matson game, I suppose. We do seem to be rotating the left backs at the very least. Kamara and Yuri in defensive midfield, and then across the front line, I have Jacob Ramsey, Morgan Rogers, and I actually wonder if Leon Bailey is going to come back into the fold as a starter, just for the calming presence, the leadership that you mentioned, and then Ollie Watkins up top. The biggest thing though that we got to be telling these guys is stay compact and get a quick start going the other way. Score first. If we can score within the first 25 minutes, honestly, I think game is over. But we can't let them get a foothold in this game. We need to put this one to bed, get on to the next one, and just close this season out.
I actually have the exact same lineup as you. I no changes. So yeah, I agree. I think the first goal is going to be really important either way. Like we talked about with if it goes Fulham's way, you run the risk of the fans getting upset or at least restless, and instead of cheering and support and singing, it's going to be that sort of nervous murmur that you hear move through the ground, and I don't think that's where we want to be. And if we can get a goal early, first half hour or so, we'll be in much better shape, I think. And we're better. We're a better team. Like I said earlier, like we are better at most positions, not all, but most. And Villa should win this game. But recent results, like if you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd be like, oh yeah, 4-1 win. Recent results have got me questioning it. So we'll see.
So Chris, I thought you were going to jump on me for not starting John McGinn in my lineup.
So yeah, I struggle with it. No, I had him in my lineup at first, but then I moved him out and went with Bailey and JJ.
Yeah, I don't think Unai Emery is going to do that. I think Ramsey might be the one to miss out.
Yeah.
So, start Rogers on the left, McGinn down the middle, and Bailey on the right. But or if Bailey's not healthy, I guess he comes out as well. But
yeah. But I like Asensio coming on as a super sub, by the way. Like he seems to fit.
And I like McGinn coming on as a bit of a super sub, little bit of energy, a little bit more defensive solidity when we're hopefully up. But I kind of want, I guess, to put a finer pin on why I'm starting those three guys. I think Yuri and Kamara give us the balance in the back. But we said we wanted to attack quickly, and Fulham being a team that's going to come out a little bit, I want a little bit more pace to get in behind and combine. And so that's why I have those three burners in there in my attacking midfield.
And you still have Daniel Malen as an option too. I don't think he'll start, but I love the idea of him coming off the bench in the 75th minute to spell somebody and bring on fresh legs there. Leon Bailey would be the guy, in that spot. So I think we have enough attacking options to really make this game ours. But like I said, I'm not as confident as I was 10 days ago.
Yeah. Well, let's put that confidence to the test. What do you have as a final score?
I have 2-1 Aston Villa.
I have the same score.
Oh, look at us. Who would have thought?
Last time we both predicted 2-1. It was 2-1.
Do you remember? I don't remember the prediction you're talking about. Which one?
It was Man City. Man City. We both predicted 2-1 Villa, and
it was 2-1 Man City.
It was 2-1, but not the way we wanted it to be.
I thought you were talking about one we got right. All right.
Boy. No, I don't think we have ever both been right.
Well, let's put a pin in that and remember it for the next time we record here when we're both right about this one.
That's right. Mark it down for posterity. All right, man. Well, this has been cathartic, if nothing else. I'm looking forward to the match this weekend. I'm looking forward to chasing down Chelsea and potentially Forest. But until we speak again, safe travels, my friend. And as always, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.